والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. This is the last Jum'ah of 2023. Obviously, we have our own Islamic calendar, which is different from the solar calendar that we follow, but obviously we live in this country. It's part of the culture, part of the environment. It's part of the culture and part of the environment we live in. That our work calendars and so forth obviously follow the solar calendar. And I was having a conversation yesterday with somebody who called me, and he was saying he was doing the end of year accounts. So this is usually a busy month for accountants. You have to get your tax, the people who are self-employed get the tax in at the end of January. And so you're doing this kind of accounting, see if you've made loss, profit, what's worked, what's not worked, your expenses, etc. And also if you're if you're in the car listening to the radio, you'll often hear at the end of the year, this type of year, you'll have reminiscence of the year 2030, what happened at the beginning of the year, middle of the year, how's the year ended, what's kind of looking forward to 2024. So at the moment, a lot of the discussion is about the general election. There'll be a general election in 2024, a lot of discussion about that. And you'll get people who will, because it's a new year, kind of fresh start, they will make New Year's resolutions, maybe to lose weight, maybe to take a career change or whatever it might be. And so at this time of year, people are on holidays, they're thinking about next year, they're thinking about the last year. It's always a good time to spend a bit of time just to reflect on how this year has been for you as an individual, and then the community, and then the Ummah at large. So this is something that is often not emphasised enough in our tradition. So a lot of the times you hear each other, one another encouraging each other to go Quran, come to the mosque, do the dhikr, especially when Ramadan comes. The emphasis is a lot on pushing yourself in outward worship. But a type of worship which is often not realised is tadabbur, reflection, or ta'ammul, or tafakkur, to spend time just to reflect, to think. And it's only when you actually reflect and think about your life that you will actually make a change. It comes at time, if you look at certain times in your life where you've made a change in your life, whatever it is, maybe in your character, maybe whatever it was, it will always be preceded by some type of time of reflection, of thinking. So when you get married, you don't just wake up the next day and say, Yalla Bismillah, right? Which is what our parents did. That's what happened to our parents. My mum tells me how she got married. People would come round and she just told, that's it, you're getting married to this person. That's the way it was then. But in our time, what happens, people come to each other's house, you get to know one another, you do your background check, you speak to them, you see if your ideas align, if your families align. There's a lot of discussion, there's a lot of maybe mushawara, counsel going on. You might ask your family, your friends, what do you think, what do you know of this person, do you think is good, and so forth, right? There's a lot of time and effort and thinking that goes into a decision like that. Why? Because the decision's important. And so life itself, your life itself, there is no bigger commodity than life itself. And what is life? It's time. And so you have to think about how that time has been spent, because if you're doing something which is not working, you have to change it. And this is why they say there is dhikr, which is remembrance of Allah, but it's also fikr, which is thinking, reflecting. And there's many statements in books of tafsir and so on. They're not hadith, but they're reflections of scholars who will say to spend 1 hour reflecting, thinking, is better than this many years of worship. Why? Because the reflecting or the thinking or pondering makes a change in you. It changes your outlook in life. It changes your behaviour. So if you look at the story of Umar al-Khattab, when he becomes Muslim, what happens? He goes to his sister's house. You all know the story. But what happened? He said, give me the Quran, let me read it. And what did he do? He read it and he reflected, he thought. He thought about, okay, everything I've been getting told, all the propaganda, you could say, at that time, against the Prophet, the propaganda's in his brain. But when he's reading the Quran, he's got the faculty to think and say, hold on, this doesn't match the propaganda. This is not what the propaganda was saying. This is different. This is good. So a moment of reflection is what leads him to become Muslim. Khalid bin Walid, how long did it take him to become Muslim? Right? But what happens is he starts to look around himself, what's happening? He's seeing all these companions are becoming Muslim. He's seeing these Muslims are going from strength to strength. He starts to observe their behaviour. And through a process of thinking and reflection, he comes to the conclusion this is the truth. There's a story of a scholar in Hadith, and Bukhari and Muslim have him down as one of the narrators. So he's one of the teachers, and he's a student of Imam Malik, famous scholar called Al-Ka'nabi. And the story of this man is that he was an alcoholic. He started his life as an alcoholic. He spent time drinking alcohol with his friends, and one day he saw there was a group going past, and he said, what are all these people? And they said, oh, you know, there's a man who's a famous man. He says, who's this famous man? So he goes through the crowd. He said, just, you know, out of curiosity, goes through the crowd, sees this, everyone's respecting this one man. He says, who are you? He says, I'm Shu'bah. And he goes, and so what? Why is everyone's like respecting you? So the people around him said he's a muhaddith, a scholar of hadith. And he said, what's that? And they said, oh, somebody that makes hadith. He goes, okay, well, if you're a scholar of hadith, give me a hadith, narrate a hadith to me. So he narrates the hadith, إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحِي فَاسْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ. If you have no shame, then do as you wish. If you have no shame, do as you wish. This man then goes home and does tawbah because of this one moment, this one encounter led to him to think about that hadith, and it made him give up what he was doing. Not only does he do tawbah, he goes to Imam Malik and becomes one of his students. He memorizes the Muwatta, or he studies the Muwatta until the point that Imam Malik says that he's the best narrator of Imam Malik's book Muwatta, book of hadith. So he then becomes a scholar of hadith, and then he eventually wants to go back to the man who changed his life, Shu'bah, and he travels back to meet him to study with him. And when he gets to the place where Shu'bah was, he sees that Shu'bah's died. So the only one hadith that he got from Shu'bah was, if you don't have shame, then do as you wish, which is the hadith that changed his life. So the point is what? The point is that a moment of reflection can change your life. Right? A moment of reflection. Otherwise, if you don't use your faculty of thinking, if you don't think about your life, you'll do the same thing day in, day out, day in, day out. And what happens? The years go by. But spiritually, you're like that animal that they say that the donkey is going round and round circles, right? It's just going round and round circles. So 20 years pass, and you're still there and you stay at the same spot. Although you've covered a lot of distance, but you've not gone anywhere. Why? Because you're just doing the same thing without thinking. It's just routine, day in, day out, day in, day out. So, how do you break that? The only way you break that is through reflection. Right? And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us constantly in the Quran, وَلَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Perhaps they will think. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Do they not ponder on the Quran? Do they not reflect upon the Quran? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentions ulul albab. Who are ulul albab? Those people who reflect. The lub is the core of something, right? Those people who reflect. So constantly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, think, use your brains, reflect, ponder, contemplate. It mentions the people who remember Allah standing, sitting on the sides, and yatafakkarun. They're spending time thinking, pondering, وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ. In your own selves, do you not see? Right? Think about your, not only about your the world, but think about yourself. How am I thinking? What happened today? I had this argument with my wife, right? What happened in that argument? Why did I react to that? Why did I get angry? What irritated me? What annoyed me? Was I right in getting angry? Because initially you think, yeah, of course you're right. But when you stop and think and reflect, you start to go back and think, hold on a second, she actually only said that. I overreacted. I overreacted there, right? But if you don't think about it, if you just spend your day angry, that's it, you go to the next day, and the same thing happens again, and the same thing happens again, and the same thing happens again, because you're not thinking. So there's no change, you're still the same. The only way you'll change is when you think, when you reflect, hold on, could I have done that differently? Is that the only way of doing things? So, I remember once a brother came at a marriage problem, and anyway, there was an argument that took place, and I said to him, okay, so why did you get angry? Because this happened. Right? I said, okay. I said, is that the only way you could have reacted? And he said, well, obviously, they said something to insult me and we could get angry. But I said, is the only way that you can react is anger? And he thought about it, and he said, no. I said, what else could you have done? Because I could have ignored it. Exactly. You see? So you always have a choice. When you start thinking, you realize, I didn't have to do that. I could have chosen another path. But if you don't think, you'll just do the same thing over and over again. So a couple of things that we should do. Number one is daily reflection. So every day, Imam Ghazali talks about this. At the end of the day, just like the accountant does the hisab, does the calculations, at the end of the day, spend 2 minutes of your time, maybe in your bed before you go to sleep, and just think of your day. Think of conversations you had, maybe an argument you had, and think about if you could have done that differently. And then, every few months you should do something. You should think about where your life is going, what's happening in your family. And obviously, at the end of the year as well, you should be thinking about how you're, like we're at the end of this year, how's 2023 been? Have I got closer to God? Has my marriage improved? Has my children, have they got closer to me? All of those things. And through that reflection is how you bring about change. And also then to spend a bit of time, obviously because of what's happening with Gaza, with Palestine, is to think about the Ummah as well, what's happening in the Ummah. And very quickly, because we don't have time, but obviously I was having a discussion the other day, some people were feeling very helpless or despair, and I said, look, the believer should never feel helpless. The believer never feels helpless, because Inna Allah ala kulli shay'in qadir. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ability over everything. So everything that's happening, God can change that if He likes. Right? So that is, it's not a foregone conclusion about what's happening. That's number one. Number two is that even in tribulation there is benefit, and we can't sometimes see that. So an example I'll give you: if someone has an illness, right? Someone gets cancer, and you're told, okay, you've only got a short period of time to live, and so forth. Okay, sisters, can you just move to the front where the glass is, and then the little boys can go behind you because it's running out of space. Huh? Sorry, sisters go to the back. And the little boys can come to the front in the sister section. So we should never feel despair. There's always something you can do. Number one is dua. Dua silah al-mu'min. The dua is the weapon of the believer. So never underestimate the power of dua. Obviously we can give sadaqah, and obviously then there is awareness, raising awareness, which I think everyone has been doing, a lot of people have been doing. When it comes to awareness, it's always good to use strategy. If you look at, it's always good to understand how the other side is using what the strategy of the other side is. If you look at what Israel does, is no matter who it is, which representative comes on the news, they repeat the same thing over and over again. They'll say Israel has a right to defend itself. Israel doesn't target civilians. No matter what you say, this 20,000 people died, yeah, but we don't target civilians. So they just keep repeating the same message and trying, because why? Because you're trying to ingrain that message into the listener over and over again. As they say, isn't it? If you say a lie enough times, people start believing it. So similarly, you have to use similar language. Don't get emotional. You just keep saying the same things. War crimes, collective punishment, ethnic cleansing, genocide. Just keep repeating the same language over and over again so that it gets through to people that this is what's happening. Right? Also, it's always good to share, when you're sharing, not to share everything. Pick and choose what you share. And it's always more powerful to share something which is said by a non-Muslim, especially if it's a Jewish person. Because obviously then you can't say, oh, you're just saying that because you're a Muslim. No, I'm just sharing something that a Jewish person has written or a Jewish organization has said, because that holds a lot more power than being just Muslims saying it. Unfortunately, that's the way things are. You've got to use more strategy. And lastly, to remember that we believe in the dunya and we believe in the akhirah as well. And the akhirah is better and greater in the sight of God than the dunya. If you look at the companions, their focus was always the akhirah. If you look at the Quran, it always tells about the akhirah. So what's happening in Gaza, those people that have passed away, in our understanding, they're in paradise. Right? So in the dunya, yes, they lost. From a dunya perspective, from a material perspective, they had nothing. But in the akhirah, they have everything. And those who have gone through suffering and loss, Allah will compensate all of that in the akhirah. They're not going to be losers, they're going to be winners. But the oppressors, they're the ones that lose. In this world they're losing, and even if they have some temporary notion of victory, they will have to account for it in the next life. They will not get away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's court justice. Maybe in this world they'll get away with it, but in the next life they will not get away with it. So we always have to keep our perspective. This dunya is very short, and yes, we have to do our bit. We have to support our brothers and sisters, but never forget the bigger picture. The bigger picture is the next lives. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make their suffering, ease their suffering, and may give us tawfiq to help them as well, and also to reflect on our time on this earth so that we inshallah can make changes. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. Wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.